Montana Television Network. This is the 5:30 News on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Jay Cohn.
And I'm Jeanelle Slade. A pair of convicts wanted in Butte arrested in Billings today after crashing a stolen van into a downtown building.
Police say the two men walked away from the pre-release center in Butte last night.
Now, the two suspects were serving time for drug crimes, but now face several additional charges. Billings police were called to the intersection of 5th Street and Cook Avenue today, where the van crashed. Lieutenant
Mark Cady says 20-year-old John English and 27-year-old Maxwell West then attempted to flee the scene on foot. The two men were then apprehended and taken to jail.
Allen's tool repair shop sustained significant damage, and a nearby shed in the stolen van's path was destroyed. Thankfully, no one was injured.
Now, initially, a Billings man told police his baby was inside the stolen van, but that turned out not to be the case. Lieutenant Cady believes English and West stole a pickup truck near Big Timber before allegedly stealing the van here in Billings.
Tonight, both suspects are being held at the Yellowstone County Jail on possession of stolen property and obstruction charges.
2 people injured in a stabbing incident Tuesday night at Montana Fair, but so far, no arrests or charges. Deputies responded to a disturbance near the Heritage Center around 11:30 last night. That's where they found one male stabbed in the arm, another man with a possible head injury.
Sheriff Mike Linder said the investigation indicates several young adults confronted one another when one male was knocked to the ground. Witnesses reported the man who was assaulted pulled out a knife, and at some point after that, another male was stabbed in the arm. When deputies arrived, several young adults fled the area.
The 2 injured men were taken to the hospital for treatment. Police also detained and questioned at least one person, but he was later released.
We spoke with Montana Fair's Ray Massey today, who tells us this is the only incident that has resulted in an injury since the fair opened last Friday. So far, more than 122,000 people have come through the gates this year.
And Massey tells us Metro Park has as many as 65 crew members on the grounds during the fair hours, along with 4 to 6 sheriff deputies.
Some eye-popping numbers included in the final report on the nation's largest wildfire so far this year. According to the Bureau of Land Management, it cost $9.8 million to fight the lodgepole complex of fires in north central Montana. The
270,000-acre lodgepole complex started July 20th. The catastrophic blaze destroyed 16 primary homes, numerous secondary structures, along with hundreds of miles of fencing and haystacks. Get this, McCone Electric lost more than 120 power poles in the fire, and the cost to replace those, $480,000. BLM of Montana and Dakota's Chief of Communications, Al Nash, says the largest cost was for aerial support to fight the fast-moving flames.
From bringing in air tankers and large helicopters to the cost of fuel, personnel, and resources, the bill adds up quickly. A specific cause of the lodgepole complex fires has never been determined.
As you might expect, 2017 turning out to be one of the most expensive fire seasons in years. The tab to fight the state's major fires surpassing the $100 million mark this week.
With no end to the hot, dry weather in sight, those bills will likely continue to add up in the coming weeks. MTN's Dennis Bragg has the breakdown.
Fighting even a single large fire can cost millions of dollars, so you can imagine how much money is being spent to deal with the more than half a dozen major fires that have been burning in western Montana over the past month. And while firefighters have been able to get some containment, this summer's fires are burning in rugged, difficult terrain, which makes suppression even more expensive. That's largely because all the fires were sparked by lightning in July. The most expensive fire to date is also the largest, the Sapphire Complex burning above Rock Creek. The trio of fires has cost over $20 million so far, with over 500 personnel working the fires. The good news is containment is now over 42% of the 30,000-acre burn zone. The Sunrise Fire near Superior, which covers more than 21,000 acres, isn't far behind. The cost here is nearly $19 million, but nearly a third of the fire is surrounded. Number 3 on the list is the Myers Fire, which has scorched nearly 14,000 acres in Granite County, with more than $15 million being spent so far, with containment at just 5%. The Lolo Peak Fire costs are also climbing rapidly, driven by the fact that aerial operations have been extensive, coupled with the cost of building some 30 miles of fire lines to try and keep the blaze corralled in the high country. $8.8 million have been spent last week. As of yesterday, the total is now just under $15 million. The Rice Ridge Fire is an expensive beast as well, with $11.5 million spent so far, keeping nearly 600 personnel on the lines of the 12,000-acre fire. And the newer Gibraltar Fire in the Whitefish Range is already running up a bill in the past week, costing $4 million for fire suppression to date. Other major fires on the tab include the Liberty Fire east of Arley at nearly $9 million, and the Park at Arastra Creek fires near Lincoln, where the totals top $12 million. And while the bill is expensive, the good news is the investment is saving lives and property, with virtually no buildings lost, even with upwards of 100,000 acres on fire this summer. In Missoula, Dennis Bragg, MTN News.
Thanks, Dennis. Now turning to weather, Bob. We've already had a busy fire season, obviously, but it's not over.
You know, yesterday it was so cool and there was hardly any wind. We had no watches or warnings anywhere in the state. Today, that has changed drastically. Let me show you what's happening. Now, we still have the air quality alert around Sealy Lake to Missoula for unhealthy to hazardous air there. And now it looks like another cold front's getting ready to make its way across the state tomorrow. And it's going to be bringing some 15 to 30 mile per hour winds. And of course, we obviously have the fires already going. So this is going to create some very erratic fire behavior, especially in the north central part of the state tomorrow. And then on Friday, it extends all the way through in towards eastern Montana. And yes, it does include Billings. We are in that red flag warning, as is most of Montana east of the divide, all thanks to a cold front that's going to be moving through and kicking up the winds on Thursday and again on Friday. What about temperatures? Well, they're going higher as well. We'll chat more about that coming up in a few more minutes.
All right. Thanks, Bob.
Just 3.5 days left of Montana Fair 2017. And plenty of entertainment yet to be found down at Metro Park.
That's where we find Q2's Dustin Kleeman, who's on the trail of some four-legged fun. Dustin.
Good evening, Jay and Jeanelle. It actually is a beautiful evening here at Montana Fair. You can hear the music behind me. And actually, to our west, southwest specifically, you can see some pretty incredible acts, four-legged friends. And think of them as like the Harlem Globetrotters of dogs. They've got all the tricks in the bag. And one of the coolest things is they are rescued from shelters. For Chris Perandi, everything began with Pepper.
He lived 16 healthy years, was a national champion in the sport of flying disc, and took me basically coast to coast, and he pretty much changed my life.
The Stunt Dogs team has performed more than 8,000 shows across North America, with appearances on national television. The husband and wife duo, along with their furry children, they hope to educate with their entertainment.
We want people to know definitely is to check out the local pounds and shelters when they're looking to adopt their next pet, because there are great dogs out there that can make great pets for their families. And there's a lot of dogs that need a second chance at life.
Everywhere we go, we're spreading that message, trying to encourage people to do more with their dogs. So after the show, we're always getting people coming up to us saying, hey, I'm going to check the pounds next time I look for a dog. Or we'll get a lot of people come up and say, we have a rescue dog too, and we were so inspired by your message, and that means a lot to us.
ACT is high-flying, an impressive display of canines' intelligence and talents. But like any performer, there are some divas in the bunch.
We got a couple divas in the show. Spitfire Spinelli, that racing dog that you saw, she's a little bit of a diva. She does some pretty cool tricks.
The show means the Perandis have a big family and 8 all-stars who have passed away over the years.
What keeps us going is the fact that they've paved the way for these other dogs, and the message is continuing to being spread. So their legacy basically lives on in every show that we do.
And these dogs' second chance is giving them a second act.
Crazy confetti!
Trust me, you didn't see all of it. There's plenty of more in that act that you'll want to check out. 4:30, 6 o'clock, and 7:30. There's plenty of shade for you as well if you don't like the heat. We talked to them, and they're going to be continuing to travel throughout the entire country after this. And I got to say, they're fun to watch. You're going to have to check it out. Jane Jeanelle, let's go back to you in the studio.
All right, thanks, Dustin. Love those dogs.
Yeah, great
awesome.
show. Still to come on tonight's 5:30 News, a traveling wall is helping some heal and even more learn. We'll show you what it means.
And a bit later tonight in sports, this senior soccer star may not look intimidating, but he is the reason the Broncs are one of the teams to beat this year.
You're watching MTN News with Jay Cohn and Jeanelle Slade. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Green.